It's weird. How do I look? Do I look like
super beautiful?
Okay.
Hello, everybody. We're just having a little conversation to kick things off because it would be rude not to, naturally. A huge, massive SEMRush, depending on where you're at in the world, themed welcome to this webinar. A slightly different kind of webinar with slightly different kinds of people in it. All, of course, are experts, all, of course, absolutely amazing at what they do. All, of course, have slightly different experiences and are all tasked with a very important challenge. That challenge is a 90-day challenge to build the authority of their website. I'm Aidan, I'm your host, and I'm joined by a few really top-notch people, and I'm really pleased that they can be with us. First of which, of course, you'll have noted is Ian Cleary. And Ian is based in Dublin. He's basically the god of outreach, in truth. That's me putting it nicely. He's the founder of Razor Social, and he writes probably one of the best marketing blogs on the planet, in my humble opinion. He really into, of course, the power of content, the power of building recurring income. So Ian's into kind of metrics like, recurring monthly traffic, recurring monthly revenue, and making it so, building that particular bridge. Ian's up front, of course. He's going to be doing a bit of a talk for us, giving us some of the top tips that you were promised on the landing page that you all have encountered over the past period of time. Joined by Ian, a couple of guest experts for you, and I mean very expert when I say this. Andy is a CMO at Orbit Media. He's based in Chicago, at least when he's not on a plane. He's been in Las Vegas this week. Is that about right, Andy? You've been in Las Vegas this week? Just nod to confirm. You have.
I was on this SEMRush webinar like 24 hours ago, and so it's been a lot of travel, but thrilled to be here.
So be kind to Andy is the moral of the story there, because of course the man deserves a sleep. However, even on a bad day or on a sleepy day, Andy is one of the finest marketers on the face of God's green earth. And of course, he's interested predominantly in content strategy, SEO, conversion, analytics, and writes a pretty ace book, which I've been reading this week around content chemistry. So of course, the science and the art behind getting it right, as it were. I'm sure Andy will bring serious chops to the table in support of the conversation, which will be happening a little bit later in the hour. Joined, of course, by Ian and Andy, should I say, is Gareth. Gareth is based in the north of England, in Liverpool, which is why he has such a brilliant accent. I just want to point that out for you all. Gareth, of course, is really interested in SEO. He's a veteran developer, actually, so it comes from a very technical background, but now is extremely engaged in global SEO strategy for lots of big brands, works internationally, runs lots of SEO groups, so you probably encountered him before if you're in the group mix, as it were. But he is working on a LinkedIn sales navigator automation tool, tongue twister, called LI Tools, which allows you, of course, to automate your LinkedIn efforts in an amazing way. So we're really pleased to have absolutely all of them. And as I said a little bit earlier, we're in a position where we're somewhat challenged here. It's not going to be necessarily a straightforward outcome. We're going to be trying to solve problems over the next hour, identify challenges, give you top tips to really nail of your website, large or small. And indeed, really to kick things off, before we turn to Ian, and Ian will do your talk for about 15 to 20 minutes or so, we have a lot of people actually asking questions about this particular webinar, which is sort of suggestive of the interest in this particular subject area. But I wonder if we could just examine a little bit before we get going a healthy discussion, as it's described, talking about authority. Now, we were asked a few times, all of us, over the past few weeks that we've been tweeting about this webinar, talking about this webinar. We've been asked, really, are we looking at a particular metric today? Are we looking at specifically domain authority metrics, or are we looking at a broader website authority? Ian, do you have an opinion on that for us? I know it's been asked a lot, but what do you think?
Yeah, I suppose, I mean, when I'm building a domain, I'm looking at the broader domain authority initially, and then I start focusing in on specific pages within the site. So initially, I'm looking at across the domain, can I build general links to that domain? And as I'm building out content, then I'm going, okay, for a specific piece of content, I'm going to do link building to build the authority of that page to contribute to the authority of the overall site.
So it's a tapestry for you, really, fairly as expected, Ian. What about your kind of, I can see you smizing in the background, Andy. What do you think? Do you agree with Ian?
Yeah, that I guess if the question was about like just authority in general, lowercase a, just like being credible, yeah, everything we do should touch on that. I mean, we need to be authentic and genuine and connect with an audience that cares about what we're talking about. But the 90-day challenge and the main topic today is like Ian said, we're talking about link building and relevance and building mentions and citations and people linking back to our website. So yeah, but to Ian's point, you're not doing the job super well if all of your links go to the same page, and if the only page that's getting any credibility in search is the home page. We should be looking for links to deeper pages. We should be looking for links with diversity and anchor text. We should be looking for links from multiple, not just the same website over and over. So there's a lot of nuance in it, but yeah, basically we're talking about link building and domain authority.
Great. Thanks very much, Andy. And of course, what's the point I think probably made by both Ian and Andy there is it's a bit more robust than a singular metric, as it were. And I know, Gareth, you picked up on this actually on Twitter a couple of days ago. You were kind of clarifying for people. But we've had a question come in whilst Andy was talking there. You should have been listening, Michelle, instead of typing questions. But hello, audience. Michelle's asked, can we please define authority before we go on any further in talking about how we build it? So if you would be so kind, Gareth, because I've seen you've been doing this week anyway, would you please define authority for the audience?
Well, authority in terms of what we're going to be talking about, because a lot of people got confused initially. A few people got confused and thought we were talking about domain authority, which is specific to Moz and it's a third-party metric. We're talking about overall website authority. So when we define that, authority as in a trusted source, a source that other trusted sources and other relevant sources would want to link to, essentially. So that is how I would define authority in the scope of this discussion.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Andy and Ian, would you add anything to that? Or is Gareth spot on, as it were?
Just briefly, I think that these are all third-party emulations of Google's own metric, which is called PageRank, and it's not a Google metric, but domain authority is Moz. SEMRush has an Ahrefs. We all have the different. It's basically the same thing, but domain score, domain rating, domain authority.
Yeah. One thing I'd add is, I suppose, there's all different ratings for authority, the number, and then it's just to be seen as an authority within the industry. Are you creating super valuable content that people go, oh, Orbit Media is the place to go to? Or Andy is the guy, or Garrett or Aidan is the person to go to if you want an answer around a specific topic. So that level of authority is really useful, and that's like influence. So you've got that authority number of your site, but you also look at the influence of the person and the people behind the site.
I agree. Ian, Andy is the guy to go to. Don't look at me. Don't look at me. Look at him. I think it's about time we kind of kick off proceedings a little bit, having defined what the hell it is that we're actually trying to do here. So if you would be so kind, Ian, if you take us through your kind of top tips, the kind of frame, and indeed we'll come back on the other end, audience. We'll take some of your questions, and indeed we'll be chatting about some of the things, of course, that Ian talks about in his presentation. But for now, I leave you in the very safe hands of Ian Cleary.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Aidan. So what I'm going to do is just going to give a presentation for about 10 minutes, and then we're going to go back in and have discussions about it. So I'm going to go through just an overview and then a few specific tips. So it's about building a domain authority in 90 days. So it's really about, can you build that authority so you can drive more traffic, so you're seen as an authority within the industry, so people are naturally linking to you. I think when you initially, if you're starting a website, I think initially a lot of the links will be outreach. You'll probably 80% of links you'll get will be reaching out. And then over time, as you build authority yourself and your website, then a lot of those links you'll get yourself naturally. So initially, if it's launching, it's a lot more work to get it. And then as you develop and grow, you still have to do outreach, you still have to reach out to people, but it will get easier. As I said, I have two sides to my business. So I have email outreach software. So we had a big need for reaching out to people to build those links. So we built software to help us with that. And then the agency side is from Razor Social. Again, we wanted to build authority within the industry. So I focused on building influence, building great content, and we grew a lot of traffic and a lot of links to our software from that side. Now, what's interesting, if you look at the SEMRush ranking factors report, one of the main ranking factors is direct website visits. So now direct website visits is a lot of it is people typing in your name into search, but Google sort of puts a lot of things into that bucket. So there's a variety of things, but just say a lot of it is people knowing who you are. So that's where you're doing all the work across social media, you know, building your authority within communities where you may not see, you know, a direct response from that, but you know, people are getting to know you and your brand, and now they're starting to type into search results, type in your domain. So you need to get people typing in that, become very familiar. So you have to build that influence and authority. We see time on site, pages per session, bounce rate is all related to content. It's like, can you keep people on site when you create that great content? So when you drive people to that content, can you keep people there? And then we look at the next few: top referring domains, total backlinks, total referring IPs, total follow backlinks. It's all related to backlinks. So I could summarize the top half of this as just backlinks and content. So it's creating super valuable content, reaching out to promote it. If you're at an early stage with a domain, you want to get lots of unique domains linking to you. So Andy briefly mentioned, it's not like getting 50 links from one website. Google wants to see that you are getting valuable authority links from a range of websites across the internet that are relevant to your business. So you're looking to get those unique links. Relationships are key for outreach. So you're always looking at building relationships. So it's not all about sending 500 mails to unknown people. It's always easier if you know people. So in your outreach, you're looking to build relationships with people. You help somebody as much as looking for help. And those relationships is going to help you move forward. I mean, we're on this webinar because, you know, we got to know SEMRush, we built relationships with each other, we spoke at events. So now it's very easy when you say, hey, Garrett or Aidan or Andy, you know, would you mind promoting this content or sharing? A lot of that goes on if you build the relationships. So that's very important. So just a brief image here. We talked about domain authority. So I'm not talking about the Moz domain authority as Garrett was saying. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a general authority. If we looked at within SEMrush, there is an authority score for the domain, and then there's a domain score. So the domain score is related to your links back to your domain, whereas authority score includes a few different things, including traffic that you're generating as well. Each of the tools has this number. So you can use this as a guideline, but it is this, and then the unmeasurable things about you building authority yourself. It's much harder to measure that. One measure of that is, are people looking for your domain name with branded searches? Are they going in as well and typing in your website to get your site? Once that starts increasing, you know the work that you're putting in is getting your name around there. So that's an important part. People need to know about you as well before they can actually link to you. And then you're looking at a blog, for example, where you have content pieces. Now, it's really just content pieces on your site that are super valuable, and trying to build up your page score for each of these. And then you're building links to the pages, building links to your main site initially, or your main website, and then building links to individual blog posts. As you do that, then that's contributing to your overall score. It's not a case anymore of writing a blog post today, moving on to your next blog post tomorrow. Those 500-word or 1,000-word posts are not much good to you unless you're a media site constantly churning out content. You need less content and more valuable content. If you want an example of super valuable content, I mean, just like Andy's website and Orbit Media would be a good example of him, you know, delivering super quality content all the time. Over 70% of 100 million articles reviewed had no links. This was from recent BuzzSumo research. As part of that research, it says that the number of shares on articles has halved over the last couple of years. So less people are sharing content, less people are linking to content. If you're not getting links to content, you will typically not rank in the first 10 pages or 10 positions of Google. So you need to get those links. And a lot of time you have to be proactive about it. You can't just publish a piece of content and hope people will find it. You will see the bigger high authority sites, and as your site becomes more authoritative, you will naturally get links. But in the short term, you're going to need to reach out and grab those links. Otherwise, you're just not going to build the authority of your site. Now, there's always this talk about inbound or outbound. Inbound is the cool tactic where you create content, you get people to come to your site, and you sell your products and services. And outbound is the outdated tactic. Well, that is not the case at all. You have to be in the inbound and outbound business. So yes, you build content. Yes, you love getting traffic to your site, but outbound is where you're reaching out, building relationships with people, reaching out to journalists about your content, reaching out to other bloggers, trying to build links. It's a combination of both. You can't be really successful without the two of them. So it's certainly not outbound is not an outdated tactic. It's an inbound and outbound combined together, and that's where you get the traction. One of Andy's pieces of content he does on a regular basis is a research report. And I love this because I think research is a great piece of content, and hopefully Andy will talk about this later. So you're reaching out and getting unique insights, and you're reaching out to a large audience who will probably share the result of this research. But you're getting unique insights, and every site loves to get unique insights. So this is where you can reach out and say, hey, I see you've published a similar report before. Would you be interested in this report? And getting valuable links. If I look at Andy's post, he's got 984 backlinks to this piece of content. That's a piece of content he regularly updates on a yearly basis. So definitely worth looking at that. So that'd be the first tip is, come up with content that's more likely to get links, and a research report is good. So if you've got 90 days, the first 10 or 15 days, reach out to your audience, start building a research report, and then start publishing the research report and spend your time promoting it. So rather than writing 10 posts on your site, all 500 words each, nobody's going to look at them, nobody's going to pay any attention. Do one research report and spend the majority of time doing outreach. And in that research report, involve influencers in your content, because that's going to add authority to you and your site by involving influencers. So really do involve influencers. And actually, that's point number 2. So there's an example of Shane Barker, who has written a lot on SEMRush, where he's done a post, 82 experts share their favorite influencer marketing tips. Now, he may rank for this on Google for influencer marketing or may not rank. Even if he doesn't rank, what he's done is he's reached out to 82 experts and probably 150 experts or more to get 82 responses, and says, hey, look at me, I'm in the influencer marketing business, and he gets tips from these people. So when he puts that into a blog post, now all of a sudden these people know of Shane Barker, they know what he does around influencer marketing, and they'll share out their content to their audience. So all of a sudden you're building authority. So even if you're not going to rank for this piece of content, it's useful to build authority. If you don't have authority, you borrow it from somebody else. So you involve people in your content that does have the authority already, and that helps immediately build your authority. You become influential by involving influencers and engaging in influencers. So number 3, watch out for relevant sites shutting down. So if there's a competitor in your industry or someone with a similar website and their website is shutting down, which happens a lot, what you need to do is look in to see who has actually broken down, or the website that's shut down. If I look at SEMrush, I see in the top right the backlinks is over 4 million backlinks to this for Clout, which is a platform that recently shut down. So there's a ton of links coming into this. So it's definitely worth considering, do I reach out to this site to actually try and get links from their site? Because so we're looking at people that are linking to blog posts, for example, on this site. Now that blog post is no longer available, so I'm going to reach out and see if they link to me instead. And this can be a great source of links. Now, one thing I like doing as well in the short term when you want to build authority is you build excellent content on your site, which we call pillar content. You may start building related content on your site, but then also guest post on external sites as well. So when you guest post on external sites, you're opening yourself up to a new audience and building authority. You're also getting links back into your content, and that's valuable as well. So you're building authority of your domain, but you're also building your own authority as well. So you're being very strategic about the guest post opportunities. So you're looking for high authority sites that are relevant to your domain and then linking back from there. So what you want to do is come up with related content so that you have a good excuse to link back into your pillar content. Again, it's about building links. You have to build links, and you have to be aggressive about this in the short term to get that authority as quickly as possible. One thing that I think is often underutilized as well is creating a free tool. So this is where you provide something of real value, and you have a great reason to reach out to people because you provide something free. HubSpot, for example, have a website grader tool which says how strong is your website, and you put in your details there and it does a valuation. On the back of this, they got a ton of leads, but also they got thousands and thousands of links to this piece of content. So generally what we recommend is create a domain name which is related to what free tool you're doing, and then when somebody goes to that domain name, it's a nice short domain name. When somebody goes to it, you redirect that back to your main domain. And then you go out and you're reaching out and you have something valuable and useful to promote to an audience. So much easier to get links. And sometimes it doesn't have to be a software product. It could be like an assessment tool. And sometimes you can build an assessment tool based on somebody else's tool. So you can get something up and running quite quickly. Number 6, you're looking for lists that maybe you should be on. So our tool is an outreach tool. So we done a search of the internet to find out who has written posts that include a list of tools related to influencer outreach. Then we're reaching out to them and ask them nicely to add us onto the posts. So you get a lot of valuable links there. So are there lists? If you're a consultant, maybe there's a list of the top consultants. If you got a product business, maybe there's a list of the top products that you could be on. So you're identifying these lists and doing the outreach. On SEMRush, there is a utility which allows you to see, you can put in multiple competitor sites and have a look to see what domains, what websites are linking to all of these sites. So here, if I put in 3 domains, I can see a list of websites that are linking to 1, 2, or all 3 of these domains. If they're linking to all 3 competitor domains, and maybe they should be linking to you as well. So this can be a great target for outreach as well, because there's an interest in that topic, in that area, and they're linking to a lot of your competitors. So it's super useful to do that within SEMRush. And finally, use an outreach tool. So whether it's our tool, Outreach Plus, or another tool, using an outreach tool helps you to send personalized emails, to a larger number of people. So rather than going into Gmail and saying, new email, type it out, using something like an outreach tool, which still connects to Gmail, but it automates a lot of the process of creating a batch of emails, helps you personalize it, and then follow up if people don't respond. And then when you do get the response, then you can respond one-to-one to each person. So they were just a few tips in terms of building authority. So I'm going to hand it back over to Aidan now, and we'll have a chat, I think.
You think correctly, Ian. We are going to have a little bit of a chat. Whilst you were talking, lots and lots of people were ultimately asking questions via, of course, the live feed on YouTube. And to be honest, they are varied questions, as is usually the case. So we'll kind of negotiate them a little bit, audience. So I'm not ignoring you. I'm going to curate you a little bit, because there are so many questions. Everyone's interested in link building, let's be fair, and everyone's interested in content. But one that seems to kind of be coming through quite repetitively, and also from someone who has a wonderful username, Hello Cosmic Carrot. I have to take this question. What is the best method to reach out, Ian, in your view? Is it social? Is it direct email? Is it in person? What's the score? Tell us what your way forward is.
Yeah, it depends. So for example, if you have a relationship with that person, you will generally just open up Gmail and send an email to the person. That's the simplest thing to do. If you want to reach out to a larger group of people, particularly, for example, for link building, generally email is a better approach. But you may warm up that person first by interacting with them on social or sharing their content, for example, and then reaching out and referencing a post that you shared recently from them. So you use a combination of it. But generally, if you want to reach out maybe to 20, 50, 100 people, email is the easiest route in terms of managing it to save time and everything is through email. And that's where you get, if you get sent good personalized emails, you will generally get good responses.
Thanks, Ian. On the email piece then, Andy, we know that you are the king of content, let's be honest. Do you agree that the email approach would be the way forward if you were tasked with something like this?
Yeah, there's the outreach can be done in two ways for two reasons. If the research piece you're creating, the pillar piece that Ian mentioned, is a survey, which is useful for answering questions and producing data that is otherwise impossible to gain, such as the original Blogger survey was like, how much time do you spend writing an article? You can't get that data any other way than survey. So now you need an outreach tool to gather data, to reach out to your respondents. And so you can do these kinds of things on social. As Ian also mentioned, shares on social, engagement on social is dropping. It's so noisy. The streams move so fast. Email is just a completely different psychological paradigm, because an email you send to someone sits in their inbox until they take action. They have to respond or delete or click or do something, file it. So yeah, I think email is a great way to do it. When you get to the outreach for influencer marketing or blogger relations or digital PR, email is good if it's not cold. Cold email is terrible and almost never works. You should try to warm that up if at all possible. And then when you get to the level where you're building relationships with Ian is so good at, and people who do this well often collaborate in person, in video, in live events. They get to know people pretty well. Email's a great way to reach out to collaborators, influencers, people who might care, especially if you have already built that relationship and warmed it up on social. So I say use social to warm it up, and then use email for the quick and polite and sensitive request. But definitely, I mean, email is ubiquitous.
Great, thanks, Andy. And kind of coming to you, Gareth. And I apologize for this question already, because of course we're talking about email, and we're talking about obviously building these relationships in different kind of formats and capacities. And I know you kind of are quite into the growth hacking space, using the word in the positive context, not the negative context. How would you build on Ian's relationship piece around email, and Andy talking about how we warm people up? Is that something that features for you, or is it something that we don't do, or people could do a bit better, in your opinion?
In terms of growth hacking, I don't really like to use the term growth hacking. I prefer growth marketing, because it has those negative connotations associated with it. It's like calling yourself an SEO ninja or something along those lines. People don't really warm to it, I don't think, or don't get it, personally. But I think Andy and Ian covered it pretty much really well. Obviously, the relationship building process is so important. I'm a big evangelist of it. And not just jumping in there and just asking for something straight away. Provide some sort of value to these people. You're going to be, build a genuine relationship with them, like what we've built with, or I've built with Ian and people at SEMRush. Meeting in person is great at events. Email's brilliant. Cold email does work to a certain degree, but I agree with Andy in terms of, you're going to get a better response via email if you use social and other methods to actually communicate and engage with these people. So you're actually already building some sort of genuine relationship before you send that email out. You're going to get a bigger response, a better response. In terms of growth hacking or growth marketing, with respect to the relationship building process, it's not really used in that sense. Growth marketing would be sort of more to do with, rapid experimentation and iteration on specific channels to grow your audience, rather than the relationship side of things, I would say. But I agree completely with Andy and Ian on that.
Great, cool. Thanks, Gareth. And apologies again for using the word growth hacking. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Forgive me. I shall change my ways and say growth marketing from now on. But you mentioned there experiments, rapid iteration. It's really about kind of, I suppose, trying it out, measuring it, gathering the data, to kind of Andy's earlier point, and seeing what happens. And I kind of want to pitch this one at Ian, because a couple of people have asked this question around the 90-day challenge. Why 90 days? It seems to be Ian's brainchild a little bit. So is it a working example of all of us setting our sights beyond the comfort zone? Is it doable if you're not a marketing expert? Can it be achieved, I suppose, is the big question that people are asking.
Well, we come back to like if you leave it open and vague and say, "Oh, let's build our authority," well, then how long is that going to take? And building authority is an ongoing process. Your personal authority and your domain authority, so it doesn't stop. But if you thought about 90 days, you might think about things a little bit differently. You would go, "Okay, I'm not going to just write a series of blog posts once a week and hope over time people will eventually find it, realize I have super valuable content, and then start linking to me and grow, and the site will grow more." So, but if you had 90 days, then you might go, "Okay, well, if I have to really build authority, what's going to build authority?" I mean, Garrett's talking about growth marketing. Garrett's fantastic at growth marketing. If you're building authority, you might think of them sort of concepts and say, well, how can I grow an audience a lot quicker? If you're thinking about the content side, you might think, well, if I do one piece of amazing content, could that be the thing that's going to actually drive that authority in 90 days? So 90 days, it doesn't stop after 90 days, but at least gets you thinking differently and sets a deadline on you want to build it within that time period.
Great, thanks so much, Ian. Kind of moving that on a little bit, but still, of course, within the context of the 90-day challenge. For that is what we are tasked with. Care of Ian, as I said. Andy, I've been reading your book this week, okay? Just sort of FYI on that. And I'm really interested in, yes, okay, we're talking about building relationships. Yes, okay, we're talking about building links and we're emailing people and so on. And we talk a bit about data and experimentation a little bit already, more on which later, I'm sure. But if you could just tell us a little bit, Andy, about the role of creativity, I guess, in making it happen. Is it enough just to be technical, or do you actually need really good quality content?
Yeah, I love this question. I'm a measurement marketer. I love analytics. I have a tab up for it all the time. The problem, though, with analytics is that it's all historic data, and it doesn't tell you what the outcome might be for some new inspirational idea. So that idea of research, I mean, your analytics isn't going to tell you that, the next thing in your content strategy should be to publish a pillar piece on research and reach out to these 4 people and get them to collaborate. It just doesn't say that. It's all just historic stuff. So you have to inject chaos into your marketing. You have to experiment. You need inspiration and like crazy ideas. So to Ian's point, right, and that basic idea, I think if you break it down, 90 days, I've got 90 days to build authority. Authority happens when people cite through citations and links. Why do people link to, how does a link happen? You need 2 things, something worth linking to, and it has to be visible to people who create content. Okay, what's worth linking to? Well, it's like college, you get a bad letter grade on your paper if you didn't use citations. So something worth linking to is going to be primary research. Make your website the primary source. And then what topic should you research? Well, find something that people are often saying but not supporting with evidence, right? It's like how long does it take to build authority? If we did a survey on that topic, that would be relevant to hundreds of people, and they might mention it at the beginning of presentations, at the beginning of articles. How long does it take in general? If we answered that question, we would be the primary source. We should probably make that research. Then the next thing, how do you get people to be aware of it? Well, here's how you cheat at that game. You just include them in the content. So if I want 10 people to know about my research study, I don't have to make it live and then send it to them. I can actually reach out to them during the process of creating it and ask them to contribute a quote. Now they are invested in the piece, right? People who write for high domain authority blogs can be in your article. So I think that you can reverse engineer links and accelerate the process to even a 90-day window by creating something that is eminently link worthy. You are the primary source, and it is visible to content creators because they're included in the piece itself. So a couple other quick growth marketing. I like Garrett's term. I'm going to try to avoid growth hacking too. A couple other growth tactics. If you create a piece of research, you can optimize it for the key phrase, blah, 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 statistics, because people who search for the statistics key phrase are looking for something to cite. Try to rank for a statistics-related key phrase and just watch how many people link to that thing. It's like I feel, okay, I'm telling everyone on this webinar, let's keep this between ourselves though, because that's a very powerful tactic. And also another thing is, if you have the chance, do a survey that is of content creators, because then you can reach out to the people who contribute, the respondents to the survey. So like if I were doing marketing for dentists, I would do a survey of bloggers for dental marketing programs, because then reaching out to them afterwards, the respondents to the survey may actually link to this, be people who might link to it itself. So if you ever get the chance, and you're in the marketing space and you can do a survey of other marketers or of content creators, that's another great shortcut.
Can I add something in terms of, we were talking about building the authority of your site, in 90 days. One other challenge I used to list out was how to get 1,000 shares on your next piece of content. And it's a similar type of thing. Is you think, well, BuzzSumo said the average number of shares on a piece of content is 4. And you're saying now you want 1,000 on your next content. Well, what do you do? Well, first thing you do is look for influencers that have a big audience that are going to share in that content and involve them in that content. And even if you're a brand new site, I mean, I've seen Gareth doing this with a software product he had, where in his very first post, he had 2,500 shares, very first blog post. And it was involving a group of influencers. So he reached out to influencers for the industry and went, hey, this is Gareth. I have this software product. Now you know of me, give me a tip. And it was shared like crazy. Yeah. So it's just, again, it's the mindset thinking, right, well, actually, I want to make a big jump, I don't want 5 shares or I don't want 2 links. I want 100 links.
Well, I mean, in the same theme, why don't we just do 100,000? Let's just boil the ocean, lads.
Well, why not? Why not?
Gareth, Ian was talking there about the majesty of that particular piece of content. And I'm wondering maybe if you could tell us a little bit about what your process was, because if it's your first post, it's probably going to be applicable for our 90-day program. How the hell did you do it?
Yeah, brilliant. So that post was actually an amalgamation of 2 different types of content frameworks. So it was a list post and a roundup of influencers combined. And that was something I came up with. I call it the expert expanded list post technique. So trademark, guys, trademark. Yeah, but I just had the idea and I thought that would be brilliant. So you're given some value in the post itself with your specific list items and tips that you're sharing, and then you're getting influencers involved to then give their insight on those specific sections. And obviously, when you say, how did you manage to get it shared that much? Well, like Ian says, these guys have got huge audiences. Once they've made a contribution, they've got some investment in the piece. So they feel once it's published, generally, that they're going to want to share it because they're invested in some way. And then I used a few growth marketing tactics and strategies, particularly BuzzSumo and Twitter, to get that out to the relevant eyeballs that wanted to see it or should want to see it. And that was key, getting it in front of the right type of people, because I'm a big content promotion evangelist, as a lot of people know. It's one of the often missed steps in SEO, I think, often forgotten steps, but it's so important. And a lot of people just, when they create a piece of content, they just blast it out there on social, Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is, and then they move on to the next piece, and then repeat the process. Whereas I like to heavily promote this, a specific piece, but to the right type of people. So that involves a lot of research, a lot of data, and a lot of groundwork beforehand. And someone asked a great question in terms of how do you get links when you're writing content for businesses or your customers when they've got no need or want to share it or link to it or ability to link to it. And I suppose we'll come back to that later when we speak about that, but that is actually key, basing your content on solid foundations first, data, a bit like what Andy said, with respect to the statistics piece. So I'm a big evangelist of that, definitely.
I often say, if you involve influencers in your content, you become more influential. You automatically become more influential just by involving them. And I seen Andy there was answering a question about podcasting. That's another way of involving influencers in your content and building relationships with influential people. I think it's often overlooked. Even if your podcast doesn't have huge numbers, your focus of the podcast could be just to interview and get to know and build relationships with experts, so that down the line then, when you're sharing content, there's a good chance they will start sharing it and you might collaborate with them or become partners, etc.
Yeah.
On this particular point, and a couple of people kind of asked it, and Andy has mentioned it, particularly kind of with a view to you, Ian, and you, Andy, on this audio piece, because we're kind of content rabbit hole a little bit here, so we want to kind of chase the rabbit a little bit, if you don't mind. We're talking about curating influencers and creating content, and of course, naturally, they'll want to share it in some way, or engage with it in some way, or link to it in some way. Is the same true of the podcast piece, the audio piece, the video piece? Is it more dynamic than just writing research papers? Is a question that's happened from the audience. Ian.
I love this. Oh, go ahead, Ian.
Andy, sorry.
Well, I'll answer. I love the question. I love the idea, and I've been doing it for a while. I think that, first of all, if you make research, you've made news, and now you have a great reason to reach out. So the outreach gets much easier, and the email gets much warmer. And hey, take a look at this thing. Would you like to talk about it on your show? It might be good for your audience. The outreach to podcasters is quite simple. Also, it might seem like there's thousands of podcasts, of course, in every topic, and they might have very small audiences. But let's also mention that we're interested in micro influencers who might be highly influential over a small group of people. Great. That's always good, right? And the podcaster is good because they don't get that much. A lot of these podcasters don't get that many outreach emails. It's not like an editor of a major publication that get 200 a day. A podcast host might get very, very few. Now, you created research, you reached out to podcasters, you're on someone's show. Now, it's perfectly this is also it's not sneaky, but it's effective. It's perfectly natural on a show to mention something and then say, and by the way, we can link to that in the show notes. The links that happen from podcast show notes. So if you're going to be on a podcast and you're looking to build authority with a capital A, like domain authority, then we are talking about looking for podcasts that have websites, not just in iTunes, and those websites have authority, and the podcast episodes have show notes. That meets all the criteria for outreach, and it's being in a podcast for an hour is actually much faster than creating a guest post or something. I think it's effective, efficient. I think it's fun. It's great networking. And the influencer effect, even the micro-influencer effect, we call this the halo. The halo effect is a cognitive bias where if someone has a positive association with Ian, look, now we're on a webinar with Ian, they have a positive association with us. That's the other upside to influencer marketing beyond just links. It's the halo effect, like Ian was saying.
Yeah.
What if everybody hates us though, Andy? Is it a reverse halo effect?
I think it would. Yeah, social proof can backfire. That's a point. That's a good point.
Ian, you were going to say something a little bit earlier there. You kind of had something on the tip of your tongue, and I want to know what that was.
Oh, you're right. You spotted it. I was just thinking of cold outreach. I think it's like cold outreach does work, but it depends what your outreach is. Like, for example, if my cold outreach email was, hey, Aidan, I want to buy your company, that's probably a welcome email. Hey, Aidan, will you buy my product immediately? That's not probably going to be a welcome one because you're going to go, well, we know each other. But if we didn't know each other, you'd probably go, well, that's like somebody in a networking event meeting you for the first time and saying, buy my product. That just doesn't work. Whereas you reach out with a value-driven approach where Andy's talking about podcasts, you do a targeted outreach to a group of podcasts that will benefit from you being on the show. That's probably going to be more welcome because you go say, well, I have a good audience and I think what I talk about is going to benefit your audience as well. That's good outreach. Or you reach out to a journalist and say, I've got a research piece and I see you've written about similar content. So there's obviously an interest. So I think you need to look at in terms of from the outreach perspective, are you providing value? Are you opening something that's going to deliver value to that audience? And if you are reaching out to people to sell your product, you don't push selling the product in your first email. You just try and get a conversation. A lot of my outreach initially is, will somebody respond yes or no? That's all I'm looking for, to engage in conversation. And if there's an interest in something, like I have this research report, would you be interested in getting a copy? Yes or no? And if say yes, then we move on. If no, then no problem,
And I mean, that's an interesting kind of point. And actually, the audience are talking about this one a little bit as well. And we've been talking really about, great content. We've been talking about outreach done in the right way, building relationships. We've been talking really about how we build influence, so to speak, in the capacity of things like two-dimensional content, research papers, podcasts, etc. And the audience are actually asking specifically, and maybe Gareth, you'll start us off on this one, which tools should we be using to do the things that we're describing to people? What are your, and I know you're very strong on this, Ian, so I'm coming to you last. Just you wait, okay? Gareth, what do you do?
So tools in with respect to what everything we've discussed so far, because there's a lot.
Absolutely right. I want, just give me your top 3 tools, Gareth. Your top 3 and why in brief. Okay. Don't rant.
I'll try not to rant. BuzzSumo is huge in terms of both influencer research and content research. Massive. So is Ahrefs, as is SEMRush. They're probably top 3 in terms of analytical and research tools. Of course, Google. You couldn't do anything without Google. And in terms of outreach tools, Ian's Outreach Plus I've tried. BuzzStream, Mailshake. There's absolutely tons of them out there. But I'm really liking what Ian's doing at the moment with Outreach Plus. And his uptake in terms of when there's maybe an issue or a bug or a new feature request, diving in and making those changes, I think is cool. LinkedIn, massive, especially in terms of a lot of people forget about LinkedIn quite often in terms of promotion efforts. I found LinkedIn can drive thousands upon thousands of visitors to whatever it may be you're trying to get visitors to, especially if you use a bit of automation magic.
Soft sale there, Gareth. A little bit of growth marketing in play. Andy, would you add anything to Gareth's list of 7 tools? 3, Gareth. Supposed to be 3.
Oh, sorry.
Forgiven. Value add.
Yeah.
Andy.
It's not a tool, but it's a tactic, and it's probably why I'm here. If you get the chance to get offline and you're meeting people in person, it's just the ultimate shortcut. So if you go to events, I think I learned this from Ian, right? If you go to events, you don't necessarily even go to the sessions. You might get the virtual pass and watch the sessions later and spend all your time in the hall just talking to people before you go. Who's sharing the hashtag? Who's a content creator? Who writes for authoritative blogs? Who can you set up a breakfast with or a lunch? I think that the networking thing, and then to Gareth's point, you can't do this without LinkedIn. I mean, you need to be active on LinkedIn, and just the LinkedIn Advanced Search tool is going to give you all the podcasters in any niche or whatever you want to find, right? It's like just the ultimate database for professionals. But I can't do my job every day without SEMrush. I also love BuzzSumo. For the next survey, I'm excited we're going to be using Outreach Plus, so I'm excited to dig in.
Ian, you have a very warm audience, I think. So we'll come to you.
I'm not going to mention my tools, so let's forget about that one. I mean, and the guys mentioned a lot of the tools that I use, the SEMrush and the BuzzSumo and everything. One, I suppose that if you're doing a lot of outreach and you have a lot of email addresses, to verify that there's no problems with the email addresses, I use Zero Bounce, and it's very cheap to use. You just put in all your email addresses and it'll pretty much tell you, is there going to be an issue with this email address or not? So if you're doing large outreach, you want to make sure your emails are not bouncing and non-deliveries, and this tool is great for telling you that.
Cool. And you've got a massive list of resources actually on your website, just FYI everybody, tools that Ian uses that are not necessarily owned by Ian, which is pretty cool, I think.
I'm sure. Can I just add another one to that list as well? Where Ian mentioned the bouncers and verifying your emails. Another great one I use for that is Kickbox.io. Really good, and it's got a great API. If you do any sort of development, really easy to hook in, so you can automate the process as well.
Cool. On this automation piece, and I have to ask the question. I've been trying not to ask the question in truth, but I think now is the right time. So prepare yourselves, gents. We've been asked because we've been talking a lot about email, and we've been talking a lot about outreach, and we've been talking a little bit about automation. Is GDPR going to ruin absolutely everything for us, or are we all good? And that's a question from the audience, not a question from me.
Sure, I'll take that. Well, I suppose the thing about GDPR, first of all, it's if you're sending messages to a European audience. There's no mention of email at all in GDPR. It's about data privacy, and it's about if you're going to communicate with people and use that data, there's a legitimate reason to do it. So there's like 6 or 7 different ways of reasons for storing somebody's data. One of them is if they've opted into an email and said, yes, I want you to store my data and I'm happy for you to send promotions. Another one is if there's a legitimate reason to store somebody's data. So it's about storing and using that data. So what's a legitimate reason? So say, for example, a cold email. One cold email is reaching out saying, I want to buy your company. Another cold email is saying, I want to buy your products and services. I want to partner with you. Another one is, I have a valuable piece of content. You've written about similar content before. Would you be interested in this? That's a request. If they say no, you can, or if they unsubscribe, you take them off the list completely. I don't think there's anything wrong with sending something to a targeted audience. Now, when you use an outreach tool, you're not using an email marketing tool. You're sending through your normal Gmail client. So you connect into your Gmail client, and it just helps automate that. So the key thing is giving people an option not to receive anymore. On your first email, not being pushy about it, and asking people, do I have permission to send you this? Is this something you're interested in? And if they say no, well, then just stop. Don't continue sending them. You continue sending them and you're sending 100,000 emails, that's spam. But if you're sending 50 highly targeted, highly personalized emails and asking for permission to, share details of your product or share details of a post, that's perfectly reasonable as long as you say stop. GDPR, the European Commission, is not about stopping you from doing business. And I think people go completely overboard with this. There is a part to GDPR, and I can whip it up, but it says that direct marketing maybe is probably okay in terms of if there's a legitimate reason for doing direct marketing. So it is sending that email if there's a legitimate reason. It does actually say in the legislation you can do it if there's legitimate. So it's all about, do you think there's a legitimate reason for doing this? Not spamming like 100,000 people. It's going, I actually think this person may be interested because of all these things. I've done my research in advance. And that's a legitimate reason to reach out.
I agree. I have a background as a data lawyer a long time ago, and I agree with you completely here. Actually, I think it's an opportunity to be trustworthy, to be valuable, rather than a challenge. So I don't know why everyone's losing their mind about it, in truth. But there is a bit of fear there with some of the things we're talking about, particularly at an executive level with clients and things. And there's been a few kind of questions come in from the audience about not just GDPR, but how then do we make the case for some of the activity for this 90-day challenge? How do we explain to someone who maybe isn't familiar with what we're doing, why we should be doing what we're doing, whether that be social media or content creation or indeed email outreach? How do we justify the time and or the spend to make sure everybody in the business's clients are on board? Andy, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that one.
It's a fantastic question, and it's very difficult, I think, for a lot of marketers who report up to executives who want fast results, or to service providers and agencies whose clients are hungry to see some quick stats. The problem with these tactics is that the benefits are very indirect, and the outcomes are uncertain. So it takes a big leap of faith, to hire someone or to delegate to someone tasks such as influencer marketing and link building and building authority, creating a giant research piece, right? Like the benefits grow over time, even grow exponentially over time. But these are not fast. That's why it's an awesome topic, like the 90-day challenge. What do you do if you have very little time? But traditionally, these are not things that that produce quick results. Even if you grew your authority in 90 days, that's still not necessarily providing a steady stream of qualified visitors and sales qualified leads. So it takes education. You have to, if you're working with a client or an executive that doesn't fully appreciate this, you have to explain how this research piece is going to be good, and next year it's going to be amazing when we have longitudinal data. This link building is going to be good, but over time, and we might get some referral visitors, but over time it's going to be incredible when our authority is high enough for us to rank for the phrases where there's commercial intent, the money phrase. This influencer outreach is going to be good, but it's going to be incredible 2 years from now when we are well known among the biggest names in our field, and we are getting invited to be on that. People start reaching out to us. So it's benefits are indirect, outcomes are often slow, But these are absolutely exponentially growing beneficial tactics that if you can educate the executive and get them to be patient enough, just through, keep sharing data, keep sharing, create KPIs that aren't necessarily traffic, but just mentions, right? Set up Talkwalker alerts so they can see when your brand gets mentioned. Show your competitors. So see what they're doing. Look, we're missing out. Create FOMO. Create FOMO among your executives. So you have to use whatever tactic you can to get them to be patient enough with you to let you work. It's like, I want to be fit like Ian. Yeah. Which of these chin-ups is going to make me healthy? That's the wrong question. You're healthy because you go to the gym and you eat your vegetables and you do it over time for years. So it's the wrong mindset for the executive or the client to say, show me which of these social media posts, is going to go viral for us. That's not at all what we're doing here. We're taking the right actions to get to the best long-term outcome, because our vision is to create a machine that produces tons of demand consistently with very little effort. Totally possible, but it takes a long time.
I mean, one thing as well is that just take your top 4 or 5 competitors, go to SEMRush and put in their details, and have a look at the top posts that they rank for, or the top pages on the website they rank for, and do analysis across them, and you'll see that the majority of content is going to be, it's content that takes a bit of time to produce, gets the best results, ranks for the most keywords, drives the most traffic. So if you do analysis of that, you'll see, well, why would I be wasting my time on hundreds of pieces of content if these 4 or 5 types of content gets the majority of traffic, and that might help.
Brilliant.
Gareth, do you have anything to add to that? I've seen you kind of nodding along in the background there, so I feel like there's something in that brain of yours that might add value here.
Not sure about that. No, I agree with Evan. It's a difficult one getting buy-in, isn't it, from executives and things. When you've like Andy said earlier on, with analytics and the historical data side of things, if you're doing something new, the only data you can refer to is that historical data, and you maybe show them some sort of proof and previous performance and things like that. But it is just a case of doing it, experimenting, measuring, seeing what works, what doesn't work, and then if it's not working, move on to the next experiment. But as Andy said, it takes time, it takes effort, and it's a long-term game, isn't it? SEO is a long-term game. Authority is a long-term game, and you've just got to spend time building it. That's it. And it's exponential, as Andy said. Once it does start to snowball, it starts to get really good.
So it is this kind of investment in time. I think we're all kind of roughly on the same page with that. It's interesting, really, because we're in this 90-day challenge. Thank you, Ian. And we don't actually have a lot of time. So I'm going to have to push back on everybody here. I can't wait to next year. I'm a chief exec. I'm pissed off. I need impact now, okay? So there are a lot of questions coming in from the audience, absolutely, about this particular piece. And Ian, you talked about the ranking factor study from SEMRush, which Marcel has actually been talking a lot about at the moment. She was talking about you the other day. And she was talking about really link building as the really kind of important thing for her right now at this moment in time. So I want to ask you all this question in turn. What would be your number one thing that you would do in a 90-day period, and what ultimately you would measure? What's your go-to metric over that 90-day period also? Would you kick us off, Andy? Kick us off on that one.
If I had only 90 days, I would look for the top influencers, specifically speakers in my niche, look for local events and see if any of them are going to be in town. I'm going to offer to meet them for breakfast in their hotel, so it's a zero work proposition for them. I'm going to do a short interview, maybe not recorded, maybe not for content, just to learn all the topics they're most interested in. What are the hot things for them at the time? And then I'm going to try to produce a piece of deep dive research quickly, just surveying, calling on the phone 100 people in my industry to find out what their top challenge is, and then get that influencer to contribute to it. Then when it's live, I'm going to reach out to all the people that I surveyed over the phone. This actually wouldn't even take 90 days, and let them know that the piece is live. And I'm going to encourage remind the influencer that they're involved in a piece here, and ask if I couldn't write a quick follow-up to it, spin it from a different angle for their website. So I'm going to get referral traffic. I'm going to get a domain. I'm going to get a link. I'm going to get relevance and good networking from having connected with all of these other my research subjects. I'm going to get a piece of data, a soundbite, and bottom line, just think about it. People link to sound bites. People link to statistics and sound bites. So I've got that. So I'm going to keep that in heavy social rotation. I'm going to put it in my email signature. I'm going to put it at the top of my homepage. I'm going to reach out to now I'm going to use an outreach tool to reach out to 100 people who might find that statistic useful, including podcasters in adjacent niches. And I think I could probably get the flywheel going in 90 days with some of those super high touch, fewer than 1% of marketers would do it kind of tactics. And I'd have, plenty of good KPIs to show my exec after that.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Andy. Gareth, very briefly, what's your one thing?
Very briefly. So I would aim to create a single piece of pillar content once per month. And I would base it on research based on what I call link targets, who are people who are likely to either be able to share it to a wider audience, influencers, or they have the ability to link to it. They own websites or related websites in the same niche. And I would create an authoritative piece, long form, about 2,000 words. And then I would perform massive outreach to all these influencers, the link targets I discovered previously, and then I would promote the hell out of each of those individual pieces and try and target it towards the right type of audience, the people who would be interested in actually reading that piece or sharing it or linking to it. And you probably get natural links that way, and you'll certainly get links via outreach as well.
Thanks, Gareth. And last but not least, to kind of complete the proverbial 90-day challenge circle of life, back to Ian. Ian, what's your one go-to for the 90-day challenge?
Well, I suppose one thing that's really important is building your email list, because if you've got an email list, you've got a ready-made audience to promote your content every time you've got a new post. So I would do both things that Andy and Gareth are doing. So they took the best ideas. But on the side of that, if you want to build your email list as well, I find that competitions are a good way. If you involve people that are involved products or services or people, and the competition prizes are directly related to your what your audience needs, so it's not an iPad, it's just specific to the audience needs. And then competitions can build a lot of email subscribers, and then you're building that audience to promote the content pieces that you're going to build as well, because you need to build your own audience while they're doing the outreach. You still want to build your own audience.
Definitely.
Amazing. Thank you, Ian, for that. So 3, as we promised you on the landing page when you signed up for this webinar, really applicable stuff. And you just got 3 of the top things that these 3 awesome experts would do in their initial 90-day challenge, as it were. I want to ask you one final question, everybody, and in reverse order this time. Let's go with Ian first. Ian, if we want to see more of you, where will we see you next?
Well, I suppose the content marketing, we're in September. If you want to see me in the US, I'll be speaking there. I know Andy will be there as well. I'm based in Dublin, but you can contact me. If you go to outreachplus.com and contact form, then you get a message directly to me. Will come directly to me,
Amazing. And of course, Ian writes a huge amount as well. So as I said, one of the best marketing blogs on the planet. Please read it if you have any sense. Gareth, where can we see you next, my friend?
Facebook, LinkedIn, at my new site, garethdane.com, which I wanted live before this webinar, but didn't quite make it. It'll be going live very, very shortly with a new piece of content, a new link building technique that Ian knows about, but we won't reveal live on here just yet. It's really, really good. Sign up to my list, and I will send you GDPR compliant emails as and when I feel necessary.
We will hold you to that one. And Andy, apart from being in every publication known to man around marketing and writing one of the best books I've ever read on content, where can we find you next? Apart from on a plane.
Orbitmedia.com is where I blog. I write an article every 2 weeks. I send spam email that is not GDPR compliant. So if that sounds good, sign up for that. I don't know what compliance is anymore. In the book, you mentioned it. It's just out, fifth edition, and it's everything I know about marketing between 2 covers. But LinkedIn is probably the best way to connect with me if anyone wants to hang out or chat or ask me anything.
Cool. I think it's fair to say all of you are available and willing in the digital space, as it were. But with that, we are out of time. A huge thank you to absolutely everybody who posted questions. We really appreciated some of them, as Andy already pointed out, numerous occasions, were very wicked, tricky, wicked good, wicked bad, challenging but interesting. And indeed, of course, this was the 90-day challenge, thought up by the mind of Ian Cleary. And indeed, you can see him pretty much everywhere. But with that, we bid you a very fond farewell. Thank you so much for joining us for this SEMRush, SEMRush, depending on where you are in the world, webinar. And indeed, a huge thanks to Ian, to Gareth, and to Andy for sharing their expertise with us, as is usually the case. But with that, we bid you farewell. We wish that you have a fantastic remainder of your day, wherever you're at in the world. Thank you so much for coming, and we'll see you very soon indeed. Bye from